and sisters, what do you need? And when you tell us in the Caribbean what you need, in Africa what you need, we'll pull it up on the computer and say to our black brothers and sisters, come on out of corporate America. Come on out of serving the government and let us serve the universal rise and liberation of black people everywhere on the earth. Every African government will be glad to give you a job, a house, a car to ride in, if that's what you want to make you comfortable. The Caribbean will give us, our intellectuals, a house, a car to ride in. Let's go and develop the resources of the Caribbean, the resources of Africa. But we say to you, if we help you develop those resources, then those resources jointly belong to us and you in a partnership. It's your resource, but you couldn't develop without the technology. We bring the technology, you got the resource, then you just can't develop the resource. Thank our black intellectual and tell us go back. You must then work with the strength of your developed resources to develop black America, the Caribbean, and so black people all over the world can be lifted up together as a whole. And now, I come to the final phase of this lecture. I come to talk to you about the final power, the third power, the power that liberates the human spirit. When something is augmented to the third power, that's a great power mathematically, for the third power is the cube of the root. When we gain the power to liberate the human spirit, we have developed the necessary power to produce a new political and economic order. This new order comes to birth out of the freeing of the human spirit. I, Louis Farrakhan, say to the press and to the people here this afternoon, I'm not anti-Semitic. I really don't know what you're talking about. If I criticize Jewish policy or Jewish behavior, don't paint me with a brush and say, there, he's an anti-Semite. This allows Jews to conveniently cover themselves up by throwing a cover over the one who can correct their misbehavior in the world. I'm not anti-Semitic, but I am anti that which robs the Palestinians of a homeland. I cannot say that I am for the freedom of black people and not be for the freedom of Palestinians or any oppressed people on the earth. Why should you fault me for that when 800,000 Jews agree with Louis Farrakhan that the establishment of the state of Israel is not the biblical fulfillment of prophecy? The men who established that state were not God-fearing men at all. They were godless men who used God's name as a cover for their wicked deed of robbing and displacing the natural inhabitants of Palestine. No. No. I am not anti-Semitic. The Arabs are Semitic people. They are my brothers. How could I be anti-Semitic and Arab brothers of mine are hugging me and kissing me and I'm hugging and kissing them? Change your language. Farrakhan is a racist. No, I'm not a racist. If I condemn the evil of white people, don't call me a racist. I didn't do it. You and your people did it. If I point out, wait a minute, If I point out the evil of your fathers in the sands of time, I didn't make the track. You and your people made the track. I'm not a racist. I'm just pointing out your evil against yourself and the peoples of the earth. I hate racism. I hate that which will take a man and lift him up simply because of the color of his skin. That is not godly. Racism is a cancer of the human spirit. Sexism is a cancer of the human spirit. Materialism is a cancer of the human spirit. Greed, lust, envy, and hatred is a cancer of the human spirit. And the will to take the possession of others is a cancer of the human spirit. So the human spirit must be liberated. This is why I come to the source of power, the Creator himself, and his truth is the source of all power. And it is only by recognizing the one God, Allah, as the source of all power and reconnecting ourselves with him that his spirit may regenerate new life in us. His spirit liberates us from these character defects and deficiencies that makes us beasts in human form instead of human and divine beings. So the liberation of the human spirit is the ultimate liberation. No matter to what heights we rise economically and politically, if the human spirit is not uplifted and freed, all that we have done in the economical and political level goes for naught. Now I ask you in conclusion, is it time? Is it time that we should engage in this economic liberation effort? Is it time that America should look favorably upon this movement of power? Is it time that the world should see this need for the liberating power on all three levels of human development? Yeah, we maintain it's time. And when it's time for a particular idea, that idea begins manifesting in the aspirations, hopes, thoughts, and actions of the masses of the people. The mass of the people, out of their longing for change, will produce a leader who will articulate the will of the masses. And this is why all true leaders are servants of the masses. And with the permission of the masses, they become the stewards of the wealth of the masses. To my Jewish friends and my Jewish enemies, don't look hard at me because I say that you are not the chosen people of God. No, you did not fulfill directly the prophecies that are written in the book called Torah, that is found repeated again in the Holy Quran. No, I'm saying to the Muslims that are present, to the Christians that are present, to the Jews or Hebrews who are present, look, that Bible teaches you that the people of God would go into bondage 400 years in a strange land. They would be afflicted in that strange land 400 years. Jews cannot point to any time where they were in bondage in Egypt, in Africa, for any 400 years under any pharaoh of Egypt. That is biblical talk. You didn't fulfill it, but we did. It was a symbolic, prophetic picture of what was to happen at the end of the world. We were brought into America, as Sister Tynetta Muhammad said, in the year 1555. Not on the Mayflower, the Tina, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. We came in the hulls of ships, captained by one Sir John Hawkins, a ship named Jesus. 1555 to 1955 is 400 years. And the book said, after that time, I will come. God talking. And I'm going to judge that nation which they shall serve, and afterward shall they come out with great substance. Now, from 1555 to 1955 is 400 years. And in the book of Exodus it reads that the children of Israel went out in the 430th year of their sojourn. 1555 to 1985 is 430 years. Our time has come. Our time has come. Listen, it's time for an exodus. What you mean? That's all right, you may take your seats. Just one of the climaxes before the climax. It's time to make an exodus. Where you going? Can we go back to Africa? Let's make an exodus. Exodus doesn't mean leaving America physically. Exodus means coming out of a slave mentality where you lay down at white folks' feet and say, gimme, gimme, gimme. When you make an exodus, you say, here I am, world. I'm a man now. I am free and I will make my own way. I'm coming out of corporate America. I'm coming out of serving my slave master's children. I'm making my exodus out of the way of life of drugs and filth and degeneracy and freakishness. I'm coming out of the world. Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins and her plagues. Come out of corporate America and give your skills to Africa, the Caribbean, to the Indians, and to yourselves. Now, what should President Reagan's response be to this? As we leave you this afternoon, let us focus on our dear president. What should Mr. Reagan's response be to what we've said? America is in the throes of divine judgment at this moment precisely because America and her leadership does not recognize the time and what must be done. So if we help America to see, we help America to live, for where there is no vision, the people perish. It's clear to us, the children of slaves, that the leadership of America has lost its vision. It's time that we develop friendship with the nations of the earth, and they will help us. America, don't get mad with us if we make friends with Brother Gaddafi and the Libyan people, if we make friends with Egypt and Morocco, Saudi Arabia, if we make friends with Liberia, Nigeria, Cameroon, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Angola, Mozambique, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Congo, Zaire. Don't get angry with us if we make friends with Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, Antigua, Montserrat, St. Kitts, Nevis, Puerto Rico, Cuba. Don't get angry with us if we make friends with Nicaragua, El Salvador, Mexico, Guatemala, Costa Rica. Don't get angry with us if we make friends with Paraguay, Uruguay, Colombia, Venezuela, Brazil. Don't get angry with us. No, don't get angry. God is bringing us out today with great substance. But we say to our Arab brothers, please listen. You say you will help us. We need that help. We cannot use lip service. We cannot use spit. Spit cannot germinate a seed. It takes water in a proper measure to germinate life, and we cannot build an economic movement on token help. We do not need a token of your love. We need a full expression of your love. In my humble judgment, since we helped America to become rich and powerful and to maintain her world position, it would only be an act of kindness if America would help us to produce for ourselves. I think Mr. Reagan should help black people to help themselves. Mr. Reagan, you're right. We don't want a handout. Mr. Reagan, you're right. We don't want to exist on welfare. Mr. Reagan, you are right. We can do better for ourselves. Mr. Reagan, you are right. Now, what are you going to do to help the black people that help you and your fathers to do for themselves? If the government helped us to do for ourselves, we could generate self-respect. And that self-respect would aid in changing the attitude of the masses of white people, which the law can never change. And I say this very humbly, America, if you would do this, just look favorably upon this movement of people organized and working for economic rebirth. Look favorably upon our desire to do for ourselves, then God will prolong your time. And if you would help us, you would generate friendship for yourself in Africa and the third world. For through our rise, the whole third world would rise, and America could prosper in that rise. And so, Mr. Reagan, I humbly say to you that you stand in the position of a modern Pharaoh in a modern Egypt. Abraham Lincoln was the first Republican president. And Abraham Lincoln was honest to black intellectuals. He told us that we couldn't expect to be treated equally in America. He did not lie then, and it's not a lie today. That's why he's called Honest Abe. He laid it on the line to black people. He told you that you should be separated because you suffer from being in the midst of white people and they suffer from your presence. This is what Mr. Lincoln said. So he wanted us to return to Africa using the knowledge that we have gained through our experience in America to develop the African continent and people. Mr. Lincoln was not able to get white people or black intellectuals to agree with this solution, and so we were emancipated. But Mr. Lincoln gave us nothing from which to build an independent existence, so today the problem still remains, Mr. Reagan, for you and me, for white people, black intellectuals, and black masses again to attempt to solve. Now, logistically, Mr. Reagan, we cannot transport 40 million black people back to Africa. Even if the whole world would use all of their navies and air force together, it would take generations to bring 40 million black people back to Africa. And I know, Mr. Reagan, Mr. Muhammad asked for 8 or 10 states. Mr. Muhammad was only wanting you to recognize what America owes to black people for building your country. Now, I know, Mr. Reagan, you would not, even if you thought about it, you would not give black people 8 or 10 states and then move all the white people in those states out that we blacks might move in. Why, that would create revolution and tear up your house. But, Mr. Reagan, you can fulfill what Mr. Lincoln started. by helping black people to become productive for themselves. This you can do. This you should do. This you must do. And if you will not do it, then God is sufficient. And we as people organized and working for economic rebirth will do it for ourselves. But if you do it, Mr. Reagan, this will build a strong America. An America that will be the beacon light of hope for the nations of the earth. But I humbly and respectfully say to you, Mr. President, that if we are opposed by the government and her agencies in our effort to do for ourselves, which is a duty imposed on us by our Creator, then Allah's judgment will overtake you, Mr. President, and America, and as a people, including the 2 million Indians, for the sake of our own survival, we will have to fight you, America, for our own survival. We will fight you for our survival. And so, my dear brothers and sisters, we must have power, and that power has come at last. It's not for a year, it's not for a day, it's not for a century. This power is forever, because this power resurrects and liberates us economically and politically, and in the most fundamental sense, it liberates the human spirit, which is rooted in the supreme law of God, which is love. It is the law of love that liberates the human spirit. For when I love my brother, I cannot rob my brother. When I love my brother, I cannot be envious, jealous over his success. I applaud his success, for his success is my success. Love does not puff us up and make us proud peacocks. Love makes us humble to serve one another. It is love that will make a black man. To hold the hand of an Indian brother and embrace that brother in the love and friendship and unity of one united family. It is love that liberates the human spirit. It is love that links the Indian of North America with the Indian of Mexico. It is love that puts us all together. It is love, keep standing, that reaches into the Caribbean and said, no more Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, St. Kitts Islands squabbling against one another. It is love that links the brother in the Caribbean with the brother in America and all of the islands together, linked up with the Indians. It is love. It's love that reaches out for the Virgin Islands and hooks us up. It is love that reaches out for the Palestinians and hooks us up. It is love that reaches out for a fellow brother in struggle, the one, the only, Kwame Ture. It is love that got us together. It's love that keeps us together. It is love that makes a Muslim find common cause with a Hebrew. It is love that unites our hearts. his black woman and bow to her as the mother of his life, as the author of his existence. It is love, brothers and sisters. It is, thank you, it is love that takes Christians and Muslims, agnostics, and nationalists, and Pan-Africanists, and middle class, and working class, and no class. It is love that liberates the human spirit. And by liberating the human spirit from these cancerous diseases, we ensure that we shall have power. It has come at last, and that power is forever. Thank you for listening, and may Allah grant you the light of his understanding as I greet you in peace in the Arabic language. Assalamu alaikum.
Minister Louis Farrakhan.